Click the links for Odysee and BitChute. I just spent 30 minutes creeping Heather Antos's Twitter like a perv. The only thing I learned is that she can draw and actually has a very cute style. Everything else is just standard SJW stuff. And why do they think it's edgy to attack Christians? That might have been cool. I mean, it might have been edgy in like the 80s if you lived in the South, but now it's just I saw Norm Macdonald he was reviewing stand-ups for his show, and there's some stand-up guy who was doing like this was recently, and he thought he was doing like edgy Christian jokes, and Norm Macdonald's like, that's not edgy, that's just making fun of Hobby Lobby. That's lame. That's trite, hackneyed, and overused. It's like you're not going to get laughter. You'll get what is it, like confirmation bias applause. It's like, yeah, it's cool to hate Christians. It's like, maybe in the 80s. Anyway, so Heather Antos can draw. So who knew? I didn't know that. The reason I checked Twitter, which is cancer, absolute cancer, is because Millar said that not a lot of comic buyers were active on Twitter. He said about 5 to 10%, which feels probably accurate. Heather Antos and Mags have sort of disproportionately large Twitter followers for who they are. At least Mags creates stories. Heather, I'm not exactly sure what she does. She says she edits comics, but she also hates comics. Another thing about social media, people show all the toys they buy from Disney Star Wars, and they say how much they love Star Wars. Star Wars was 6 movies and a holiday special. Go watch it if you haven't. But have a couple cocktails and some pharmaceutical help to help you get through it. And you know, the people who made the holiday special were on a lot of pharmaceuticals. They definitely believed in better living through chemistry. Then you get the extended universe books, and some of the old comic books were pretty cool. Nobody actually loves Disney Star Wars. They say they do, but then you ask them how many times they've rewatched the movies, and it turns out like, yeah, oh, the Disney trilogy? Yeah. I saw Empire Strikes Back again. Yeah, how many times did you rewatch? Yeah, you didn't. But they've always got pictures of Star Wars toys and crap to prove that they're loyal to a billion-dollar globalist soul-sucking corporation. I have one Star Wars toy that I found in an alleyway because toys just gather dust, and I'm sure some little kid is probably looking for it. It's one little Princess Leia doll, which admittedly looks pretty cool, but this is from the original trilogy from 1977. So, and I'm not sure why Mark, if anyone wants the doll, let me know. I will mail it out to you. I'm not sure why Mark made the post. The feeling I got that he was being a little bit of a poop lord, but if he's in the mainstream, then he has to be on the left wing, and other people were saying he definitely is. So the post was saying that Twitter wasn't the center of the world for marketing comics, which feels accurate. Someone like Mags has got 40,000 subs, but can only sell 1,000 issues of whatever they're working on at the time, because the product is aimed at the BLT crowd who are mad at their dads, and they seem to enjoy really crappy art. Vagrant Queen, nobody bought that. That went for like 8 issues, and nobody bought it. Then they made a show on Sci-Fi, which nobody watched. I couldn't even finish watching it to review it. It was almost as bad as Batgirl. And actually, I thought it had better production values than Batgirl. Vagrant Queen had really good costumes and set design, so I'm not sure how they managed that, if they just kind of lucked out or they had a bigger budget or what. It was just the writing that was absolutely horrible, because everyone was a mixed race lesbian of color, which turns out to not draw a big crowd. Just being a lesbian isn't enough. There needs to be a story in there. So for some reason, Mark decides to tell the twatter people that they're not as important as they thought. Gail Simone's got 180,000 followers, but if I remember, she doesn't sell comics. Comics is the weirdest collection of SJWs who keep each other employed while they insult the customers. Then they block them and they sell less comics every year. Occasionally they will spurg out at Comicsgate or manga. But those things actually sell. SJW comics don't sell. Just stop being such a douchebag SJW. Stop telling people, stop preaching to people when you are like are you have nothing, you have no basis upon which to preach. You're just a childish weirdo cat mom, and you're like, you've never run a business and you're telling the world how they should run a business. It's just a bizarre collection of Marxists. Mainstream comics is a collection of mentally ill adults who are still mad at their dad. Some have Trump derangement syndrome, but this Bolshevism started way before Trump. There's a picture of Gail Simone and Kelly Sue DeConnick, and they're saying like, "Yay, us! We took over the comic book industry." Yeah, how well is that doing? Comics are a bunch of weirdos congratulating each other for presiding over a dying industry. Comicsgate has such an uphill battle making and marketing unknown IPs using YouTube, but it seems to be working. Not only does Comicsgate have to do it alone, the mainstream giant takes every opportunity to try to destroy them. And that has been a weird shift, watching the purported left wing take the side of billion-dollar corporations versus the little guy. It's like the left has been replaced by corporate drone pod people. Once the left gets power, they kind of turn into authoritarians. Oh, and Chris Arrant chimed in. He works for Newsarama, and I don't know the traffic to that site, but all pop culture sites have kind of taken a bigly hit during the Trump years. I think the silly fun of the BuzzFeed era is over. Things are starting to look bleak under the Biden era. I suspect that there will be a lot of belt tightening. If comics die, then so does Newsarama and those type of sites. And I just checked his channel analytics. It gets 60 views a day. So that's not a website. That's just more of a hobby. I did want to say that Chris Arrant has a good beard game going on. I'm a little envious. He's a great big fat guy, but he's doing a lumberjack look that sort of works for him. So credit to him for that. So a few people are a little bit triggered to hear that he's saying that having Twitter is not as important as they thought it was, but they're kind of gently asking this, and he already replied that he got it from an insider, which is very important marketing information to have. But it's weird because he's on the left and he's saying this, so I'm not quite sure what's going on. But people seem to be a bit upset about it. And then somebody says, Chris Arrant. Somebody says, yeah, one of the reasons why comic fans aren't on Twitter is because like this guy never interacted with Heather Antos, and he finds out that he's block-botted. Like, how are you in sales and you run these blockchains on people? That's insane. Are you trying to sell or not? To find out, like, you go, okay, hey, I'm going to sign up for Twitter and go follow some. God, there's a bunch of people when I was on Twitter. Who would block at the drop of a hat. It's like, they don't care about losing one sale. It's not that you're losing one sale. It's that, it's just the casual disregard for people you're interacting with. Like, it's kind of a little bit of splash of cold water in the face when you find out that people run these blockchains. Because if you follow Bounding into Comics, I don't know, Ron Mars and a bunch of other people will use blockchains on Bounding into Comics, and Ethan Van Sciver, and when Diversity in Comics was online for him too. And it's like, that's a weird, that kind of, it's not quite the flex. Because you're kind of saying, like, you're so sensitive that you don't want to interact with anyone who follows Bounding into Comics. Bounding into Comics is the one. Bounding into Comics and Bleeding Fool are the two sites out there that are vaguely moderate sites. Everything else is a shill site, like Newsarama, which I didn't know the views were that bad. 60 views a day, that's just, I guess that's just a part-time hobby. I thought it was a full-time site, but that's garbage. And, you know, like Bleeding Cool sites and all these, there's a bunch of others like CBR, they're absolute shills. There are comic book sites, if you look up reviews just for shits and giggles to review like the latest Ms. Marvel, Captain America, all these cancer comics, they all get 8 or 9s out of 10. Like the latest Black Panther, which Black Panther 25, I tried to read it. I went through it. It has a lot of small little boxes with a lot of words. It is massively overwritten and poorly overwritten at that. So I couldn't even get through it. That will get. Oh, and it's got all black characters in it. So now it's really diverse. Gee, Ta-Nehisi Coates. He's another story. And the Ethan Van Sciver lawsuit's another story too, but it's actually not that big of a deal. People get sued every day for really minor stuff. Where was I going with this? I don't know. The way they treat they're not fans. They're customers. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. Go to Odysee and BitChute. And if you're on YouTube and you make content, put your stuff up on BitChute and Odysee, just in case.